Hey guys, this is Trevor once again. I just wanted to talk about some of the things that Apple Soldier here talked about in his video, Mac versus PC, Snow Leopard versus Windows 7. So I'm just going to kind of go over some points that I wrote down. Basically, the first thing he brings up is Windows Media Player versus iTunes. And he shows the interface of Windows Media Player, uh, and just says it's bad. Doesn't really say anything about it other than it's bad. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing. Look at this piece of shit. What the hell is that? What is this? How can that compete with Windows Media Player? You see this? This is so much better. It can't even compete. Look at that. Alright, so basically that's what he did. Personally, I'm forced to use iTunes. I received an iPod Nano as a gift a couple years back, and because I try to stay legal with my music and I want to be able to download music and pay for it, I'm forced to use iTunes. As soon as the Zune HD comes out in about a week, I'll be switching to that, and I'm going to subscribe to a Zune Pass so I can fill that thing up for 15 bucks a month. So anyway, that's pretty much all I had to say. I'd say pretty much that Windows Media Player and iTunes, they both play music, they both play videos. Media Player is a bit has a few more features. I don't use either one all that much, but that's the truth, and they're just laid out differently, and I don't really think there's a big competition there. iTunes to me has always seemed very slow and chunky. You saw how fast iTunes came up compared to Windows Media Player. Here's iTunes, click, and there it is. And let's do Media Player, click, there it is. So you can definitely see a difference there. So the next thing on the list here is upgrade. And he's talking about being able to upgrade from Vista to Windows 7 but not from XP to Windows 7, and I really don't see what the issue is. If you really need to upgrade from XP to Windows 7, you can always find an intermediate Vista CD or borrow one if you don't have one, but they're not that hard to come by. You won't really need a license for it if you just want to use it as an intermediate operating system to upgrade. If you want to go clean install, that's what I recommend anyway, if you're going from XP, but certainly there's no problem if you want to upgrade. Going from OS 10 to OS 10 must be a big problem, because Apple Soldier needed to wipe his hard drive clean. So I don't really see what the point of that was, especially when he was giving all this shit for Windows not allowing you to upgrade from XP to Windows 7, as Shaka Slim here points out. I completely agree with that statement. The next statement is about control panel. So I'm going to open up the Windows control panel, and this is what it looks like by default. Really, I don't use this. Personally, if I want to change a setting on my machine, I don't even touch the control panel. I just need to know something about the setting. Like, for instance, I want to change my keyboard settings, so I'll hit the Windows key, and I'll just type in something like keyboard, and then control panel will show me all of the control panels that will do anything with your keyboard. So here's keyboard, and I just click, and there comes up the keyboard control panel properties. If you want, you can use this list. I don't really see why this is a big problem, and drill down by these lists. There's a lot of controls in Windows. There's a lot of things you can do. So it's going to be hard to have one list of everything in the same window without looking cluttered. That's just how it is when you have a very customizable operating system. The next point is malware. Yeah, Windows 7, I believe, comes with some kind of anti-malware protection, we have the Action Center, which looks like this here. Let me open that real quick. I don't use the Action Center personally. I don't use Security Center service. I don't use Windows Firewall. I don't use anything. You know, I don't use virus protection or what have you. You'll see AVG open here. That was more or less just a test, and for some reason it's still running. But yeah, I can show you here. If I say net stop Windows Firewall, you'll see that it's not started, or the same thing with Windows Security Center service is not started, just because I don't like using it. I also turn off UAC. I don't recommend that other PC users do that, but that's how I roll. So the next point I have is all the versions that he complains about. And you know, there's not 7 versions of Windows, at least not for you and me. There's going to be 3, and those versions are real easy to negotiate. It's not like it's rocket science. You have your home version, which is going to have all of your media player and Xbox integration, and it's basically for 99% of the home users. And then you have the business edition, which is going to have features such as, you know, joining your domain and remote desktop and things like that. And that's going to be suitable for about 99% of business users. So for those advanced home users, or maybe the business user that uses the same laptop for home and at work, then there's Ultimate, which basically has all the features. And you know, which is great. You don't want to pay for something you're not using. So that's pretty good argument for that. I don't really think that's difficult. All the other versions you hear about, you know, Enterprise and Home Basic and Starter, those aren't really available to the public. Enterprise is for volume licensing. The Starter Kit version, I don't even think that'll be available in the US. So that's pretty much all I have with that. 64-bit is another thing that was completely bullshit. You know, Windows has had 64-bit operating systems since, I think, let's find out. Let's see, there we go, Professional 64-bit edition. Since 2003. Granted, nobody was using 64-bit in 2003, and there were very few drivers at that time, but we've had 6 years now to write drivers for 64-bit operating systems, and I'm running 64-bit Vista right now. Don't have a single device that doesn't work with it. So it's 6 years later, and OS X is finally getting 64-bit? That doesn't seem right. It seems like it's just slow. So yeah, with that I'm running 6 gigs of RAM. I've had 6 gigs of RAM for at least a year now. Couldn't do that with a Mac a year ago. And the final point I have is just about Snow Leopard, and Apple Soldier saying, you know, it's not a service pack, it's not an upgrade. It's I realize it's not a service pack. It's not something you download and update your system with. It's a standalone operating system, but if you really compare Snow Leopard to Leopard, there's not that many new features. There's not that many differences. You know, pretty much everything he described, but that's about it. And everybody's getting all excited over this brand new operating system, when all we've got is transparent menus and some 64-bit support, which should have been there a long time ago. And you know, I can't think of anything really earth-shattering that came with Snow Leopard. So I don't see why we can't call it a service pack. That's what I'm going to call it. It's even the same cat. We have a leopard and a snow leopard. It's the same thing. It's OS 10. It's the same thing. It's been OS 10 for years now, hasn't it?